Sub Pop was an independent record label that rose to fame by putting out albums by several Seattle rock bands before they got huge and had teenagers rocking Doc Martens and flannels. While the label is still around today, they're best known for releasing early material from Nirvana, Soundgarden, Mudhoney, L7, and more. In today's episode of Prisoners of Rock and Roll, we're taking a look at Sub Pop Records and the role they played in the Seattle music scene. We're going to read their famous rejection letter that started with the salutation, "Dear Loser," and tell the story about how the label owners got Nirvana's first record contract out of a library book. And of course, we're going to talk about the bands and play some clips. Let's go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Prisoners of Rock and Roll, episode number 39. My name is Bruce Kramer, and I'm here recording this episode with two guys who can do absolutely anything they put their minds to, but they decided to do this podcast with me, Ryan McCusker and Doug McCusker.
What's up? Are you rocking?
Speaking of McCuskers, Prisoners of Rock and Roll is sponsored by McCusker's Tavern at 17th and Shunk Streets in Philadelphia, and we are honored that our show is part of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Man, all right. So tonight we are going back to the 90s.
Wow. 90s were good to a lot of bands.
Getting all my equipment squared away here.
Yeah.
Knocking all my crap over.
Getting all the time machine ready.
Getting the time machine ready, man. Yeah, so this one was on my list of topics that I want to talk about for a while, man. I just thought it's a really cool story.
When you brought it up to me, I was thinking, can we do a full podcast about Sub Pop? But after looking at your notes, I'm like, wow, there's a lot. There's a lot to this story, I guess.
Like I read the layout
outline
for the show, and I was like, wow, Bruce.
Yeah, man. So we share our notes like a couple days ahead of time. Like, this is what I'm thinking. Here's an outline. And I sent it last week, and you guys were like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah,
man.
dude,
You guys
it's a
really
lot.
got in the. So I think the way we're going to tackle this, man, we're going to talk about the story of like where the label came from and kind of their, maybe up through like Nevermind. That's really kind of like the cutoff,
Sure.
right? And then. Sub Pop is still around. And they still, I've got a little bit on maybe some of the bands that are on there today. And they have some more, they had more bands that I knew than I thought I would. That are still, I don't listen to a whole lot of contemporary music anymore.
There was a lot of stuff on there. I didn't know Modest Mouse was on Sub Pop. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah,
Do you
Jack
think
White, the White Stripes are on there.
Do you think bands like look out because like Sub Pop is such like a beginning of grunge and like this heavier kind of music? Do you think that bands want to like
I think
just
so.
for principle?
Eddie Vedder put something out on Sub Pop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
so.
purposely that.
Yeah, I think so. Especially, even though they're part of Warner Records, I still think that's like it's like a recognizable brand.
Yeah.
That even if it's
what
like
if you're an artist, you want to be part of.
Yeah,
like
I
keep
think
it going,
so.
kind of thing.
If you're like an independent, rock and roll band. So, all right, man. So I'm going to start telling the story a little bit about how Sub Pop started. So it's a little complicated, and it was interesting, man, because a lot of the stuff that I read was like conflicting dates and info. And I was even reading interviews from the two dudes who started it, and there was still conflicting stuff.
And these guys don't remember like too much.
Yeah. All right, so there's two dudes that started Sub Pop, and the first guy I want to talk about is a guy named Bruce Pavitt. And it said it gets a little complicated to kind of figure out, but this dude in like 79, Bruce Pavitt, he was like a radio guy and like a college radio station, and he had a fanzine, which I was kind of like, oh, like fanzines in like the 90s were like that was like kind of like the podcasting before the internet. Everybody had like a magazine that they made themselves. And he had this fanzine called Subterranean Pop. And he only wrote articles about the independent music scene in the Northwest. So Subterranean Pop, Sub Pop, kind of,
sure.
right? So, but he wouldn't talk about like bands on like major labels, and he wouldn't talk about bands that were from like LA and New York City. He said and he would make this fanzine, but he couldn't afford to like print it in color. So he would make it in like black and white and have his buddies come over with like crayons, and they would color in the cover and turn it out. So, and this dude, he actually sells like a collection of all of his fanzines. Like you can go on his website and buy them all. I don't know why you'd want to read that, but you can. Anyway, so the fanzine kind of turned, as he's writing about these like really independent records, he then started making like cassette tapes of all these like independent bands, and he would put those out to kind of like help promote them. So he was kind of like a de facto record label, but like a college guy. You know? So he's kind of like doing this like
a Rick Rubin kind of guy.
Kind of, yeah. But it's like but no like formal business. Like
he's just like putting it out. Like
kind of like I could go to all these shows. It would be like
he just had the passion for it that he wanted to kind of like advertise the music that he liked.
Yeah, it'd be like kind of like if I was writing about all like bands that are playing at like places around here, and I recorded you guys playing at McCusker's the other week and put it on like a CD and started handing it out. Like, oh hey, check this out. This is what I'm talking about. Or like like if the Prisoners of Rock and Roll had like a blog or something and we were sharing like local bands and stuff like that. The guy really briefly opened like a music store, and it kind of didn't go anywhere, but in 86, he puts out this compilation called the Sub Pop 100, and he only made like 5,000 copies. And they're kind of collector's items now. I
was going to ask that. Yeah, they have to be some kind of collector item now.
Yeah, they're on eBay for about $75 a piece.
That's not bad.
But there was a couple he had a couple bands that were on there that were like Sonic Youth was breaking. But they agreed that they wanted one of their songs on here. And then there was another band on here called the U-Men. And I put the U-Men on our playlist, and really because they're kind of considered one of like the precursors to grunge. And I didn't think their music was really good, but let me play a little bit of it off the playlist, and then I'll kind of tell why I put them on here. Here you go. Here's a song called Gila by the U-Men.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I didn't mind that. I like that.
It wasn't quite punk rock, but it had this forgive me, but it has this Seattle sound to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You can hear the Seattle sound, and it's kind of a post-punk. And they're kind of important because they're kind of considered like one of the bands that were around before grunge. But they were also managed by this woman named Susan Silver. And she's a big deal, man. So she also managed Soundgarden. Awesome. And she was Chris Cornell's first wife.
Okay. I heard about her.
She also managed Alice in Chains and the Screaming Trees. She still manages Alice in Chains today.
Okay.
She also managed a shoe store in Seattle that sold all the Doc Martens and made the Doc Martens famous.
She sounds like she has her finger on the pulse.
Yeah. And she also helped Nirvana leave Sub Pop and go to Geffen Records. Right. So like when Kurt Cobain decides like we want to go to a major label, they ask her what to do, and she's like, go find a lawyer and start shopping your shit around. So
cool. It's kind of cool, man. Do we like her? Or
I think so. Yeah.
She gave them the idea to be a bigger band.
Yeah.
Do you want to be like local, or do you want to be around the world?
Yeah. So I thought it was kind of cool. Like she managed all those bands, and that she was like responsible for some of the fashion.
But she's like taking like a lot of like credit or money. She's making money on everything. Like she's selling like the Doc Martens
shit out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
She ran she started like a management company, and I think she largely like retired, except for Alice in Chains that she still manages. I think everybody else she doesn't manage anymore.
Yeah, they're dead.
She wasn't dead. And she wasn't Chris Cornell's like widow, right? But she Chris Cornell, I guess they got divorced and he remarried. He's not the widow that, because there's something with like his estate, right? That like his widow.
There's still going on.
Yeah, now. I don't think that's her.
There was that's his wife now.
When he first got divorced, she was like really went after him. Like she like owned all these guitars that he owned, and he didn't get them back from her, and she plays dirty.
Marriage.
So marriage. So this dude. Bruce Pavitt, he's doing a little bit of everything, man. He's running a record store. He's putting out some albums, or he's got this compilation. He's writing this magazine, and he borrows a little bit of money from his dad to put out an album by this band called Green River. And Green River is like kind of they're a big deal in the Seattle scene, right? So a lot of people maybe don't know who Green River is. the band, when Green River broke up, those guys went on to start Pearl Jam and Mudhoney.
Nice.
And Temple of the Dog. So it was Jeff Ament and Stone Gossard were in Green River, and the singer was Mike Arm. Mike Arm becomes the lead singer for Mudhoney. And maybe I'll play a little bit of.
That's awesome. Yeah,
I've listened to some of this week.
It's like more metal than grunge. It's like heavy.
It's the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like it's mid late 80s kind of stuff. There's a song called "Swallow My Pride."
You can definitely hear the progression of like what Pearl Jam became and
you can see
these
like,
other bands.
Yeah, they're definitely young. Like you can tell like the development of the music.
It was cool because like so they put out a couple EPs and they decided they want to put out an album, and they said Sub Pop. The guy's like, I don't have the money to do that, so he borrowed some money from his dad and he put out the album. But then the band broke up right before the album came out. So the guy's
that
like,
sounds about how bands work.
Right, I sunk all my money into putting this out. And then there's no reward because they broke up.
Yeah, and how you going to sell an album from a band that doesn't play anymore?
And then a couple of those guys, 3 of the guys from Green River go on and they join Mother Love Bone. And Mother Love Bone becomes like a really big deal.
Yeah, sure.
And then that singer dies before their album comes out. And then Stone and Jeff go on to create Pearl Jam. So
Mother Love Bone was a great band.
Yeah. They're not they never released anything on Sub Pop, but I thought that they were worth talking about.
Sure,
at this point.
It's part of the story.
Yeah. I put what did I put on here? I put Crown of Thorns on here.
Play that.
Let's play a little bit of that. It's a great song, man.
You ever heard the story of Mr. Faded Glory? Say he who rides upon him must someday fall. Talking to my older, life is what you make it, and if you make it death, well, rest your soul away.
He was great. What was his name?
Andy Wood. Yeah. Well, he died right before that album came out too, right? Yeah. So it's like another. It's
that
like
was probably
double
heartbreaking for the whole scene.
Oh, absolutely.
He was like, God, they became Pearl Jam for Christ's sakes.
Right. They're like kind of like the first ones, right? If you study the arc of grunge music, they were like the precursor.
I mean, the Pearl Jam part's there. You can hear it. Like Pearl Jam definitely had this psychedelic sound in the beginning.
Right.
Yeah, man.
And like you said, like we were talking during the song, like Pearl Jam still covers this song. Like, they still play a song in concert. And I always liked that because they're still holding on to their roots. But it's a great song too.
Andy Wood's vocals are great.
Yeah.
Like you could tell it's the times. There's still like that edge of like 80s hairband like in there. But he would probably progress into something totally different if he didn't die.
Yeah. Hearing that just made me think of like, I'm a teenager, I'm sitting in my buddy's garage and we're just kind of listening to music and just tooling around and just, like a Friday night, just hanging out on a summer night.
It's like the River Edge kids. Like hanging out.
Yeah. It was the sound of that time.
Yeah.
Like 91. No, it's probably before that. But Mother Love Bone probably came out in like 89, 90.
Yeah. I think so. Right. Because 10 comes out in 91.
Yeah.
So it's got to be before that.
Yeah.
And I guess you kind of got to be a little bit of a music historian or into grunge to know them, right? Because they're not you don't hear the shit on the radio. And maybe if you heard them on the single soundtrack.
Pearl Jam gives them a lot of love.
Sure.
They talk a lot. If in the Pearl Jam documentaries, they really do talk about Mother Love Bone in the documentaries.
As much as a big, huge Pearl Jam fan I am, I gotta say I'm not a big fan of Mother Love Bone. I think it's really dated music. That's just my opinion. Like, it never blew my doors off. Like, oh my god, that
song blew my doors off.
Yeah.
Crown of Thorn sounds like It's got kind of got like a Stairway to Heaven kind of vibe to it, like just slow
It's
build.
eerie.
Yeah. Eerie is a great way to describe it.
And it's definitely one of their better songs that they put out, in my opinion.
They were really funky. I mean, you had the good time of the times. What was more alternative right now? Was it the Red Hot Chili Peppers? Were they really alternative
Like
compared to like what these bands were doing?
It's cool hearing all the stuff that that we all grew up on, and then you go back and listen to that. You can hear like you said, the progression from the hair band stuff as it's starting to morph into grunge.
Like you see footage from early years of the grunge era, and they're not too far from being the hair band.
No, not at all.
No.
Like obviously the makeup's not there, and they're wearing their own street clothes, but they're still wearing leather jackets.
Yeah.
Right.
Like look at Alice in Chains. Alice in Chains was a grunge band. No, they weren't. They were a metal band.
Yeah, they were like a hair band for a
Yeah,
while.
you saw
too.
that footage just came out too. They released not too long ago. It's just them all like glammed out and shit.
One of you guys said it
That was me,
before.
yeah.
I think it was like, well, even like the flannels was like, they were wearing the flannels because they live in the Pacific Northwest.
cold.
And it's
Yeah.
friggin' cold all the time.
Yeah. They wore long underwear, and,
Right.
and like it's just
Right, they wore it because that's just what they wore because it was
Yeah.
cold outside. It wasn't a fashion statement, and then it becomes like you go to your Walmart and buy it, right?
Oh my god!
Right.
I think it's the fashion that's happening right now. Like it goes in a circle. I think
Yeah,
the
I see
grunge era is back now.
It's definitely
I
coming
see
back.
it. Yeah, I like it. I'm not mad at it.
No, my daughter wears a ton of like flannels and Nirvana shirts, and I'm like, all right, you're not a poser. At least you
No, she's
understand
not.
the music.
Not
So,
at
all right, so that's the first dude, and then the other guy was this guy Jonathan Poneman. And so around the same time, this guy Jonathan, he's hosting a radio show called Audio Oasis at the University of Washington. And as he was working as a radio station guy, as a DJ, he started to book gigs and promote bands on the side to raise money for the show. And there's another dude who's on the air at this radio station who went by the name K-Clone. And K-Clone's real name was Kim Thile from Soundgarden.
Wow. Sure.
Kim Thile from Soundgarden.
Wow.
So this guy Poneman winds up booking Kim's band Soundgarden for a gig. And Soundgarden had even played 10 shows together yet. But he books him and this guy Poneman goes and sees him and he's blown away by Soundgarden.
Yeah.
He goes backstage and it was like, oh, dude, you guys are going to be the biggest thing ever. Poneman said Chris Cornell looked like a high school football player on a PCP bender. Right. And he was like, you guys are going to be awesome. And the fact that Soundgarden had only ever played 10 shows together, like anybody telling him that they're awesome was like,
Sure. Sign us up.
yeah, right. And he's like, you guys have to release an album and I have to help. But I have no friggin' idea how to do that.
Do it. He saw the product,
Right.
but didn't know what to do with it.
Right.
Yeah.
He's like, we got to do something, but I don't know anything about the music industry. So Kim Thile goes, yo, I know this guy that I grew up with, this guy, Bruce Pavitt. He's like, Kim Thile used to play in a band with his brother before Soundgarden. He's like, go talk to this dude. So Jonathan Poneman goes back and talks to the other guy, Bruce Pavitt, and they decide that, well, we're going to release a Soundgarden album. And John Poneman cashes in like 20 grand in savings bonds that he had received from his parents.
Sure.
And invests all of it in Soundgarden. They put out that, and Soundgarden or Sub Pop's not even like a company yet.
Yeah,
it's still kind of like this weird kind of amorphous thing, but they put out the Screaming Life EP from Soundgarden.
Yeah.
I guess we should probably play something from it. Here's what you put on here. You put Big Dumb Sex by
What
Soundgarden
a great
on
song
here.
this is. I take my hat off to that guy, man.
Sure.
Like he definitely saw it and was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like there he is. This is like the future of music.
Because it's not as Soundgarden was kind of like slow and plodding. They get like it's not there yet, right? It's still like his voice is. I don't know.
I think his voice is there.
Yeah, it's very unique.
Maybe it's the music
He's
isn't
so
there
young.
yet. Then. Yeah.
Definitely.
It's kinda like
He progresses into another thing, into another
absolutely.
dimension.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, he became such a more powerful voice.
You know what,
Chris
man? Like,
Cornell.
and speaking to him, like when Soundgarden had broken up for a while, I went and saw like Audio Slave, right? And they got back together. And I remember going to that show and just thinking like, rock and roll just needed his voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, just nobody sounded like him. He could hit those notes. Yeah. He could do anything, right?
He was the best singer from that time.
I think he was too. And or one of them.
One of
I
them.
mean, he
One
was,
of them, yeah.
But he was so like versatile, like that Sweet Sun Shower, that solo album.
That was
he made
that was
a good
great.
album.
That's
Yeah,
a great
that's
song.
a great
Sun Shower.
Yeah, he did some stuff with like.
I saw him on that tour.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, he was
nice.
at the Tower Theater
Good
in
for you.
Philly, or Upper Darby. It was great.
Really versatile, powerful, like amazingly powerful voice. Really a shame that he passed away.
Yeah,
But-
He gave us a lot of music, though.
He
lot
did.
of music.
it's just his depression was awful.
Yeah.
You know,
It's really a shame. But going back and hearing all this kind of stuff, I mean, like Bad Motorfinger was one of those albums to me as a kid that blew my mind. Like sitting in my room and listening to it, just going like, "What is this? This is so cool."
they were,
It
but
was real heavy.
they were totally more dark than other bands.
Right.
Like they, how we were saying how maybe the Mother Love Bone was a little bit more. You can hear that '80s influence. There was a lot of color into it.
Yeah.
But when you listen to Soundgarden, it's just black.
It's like plotting. It's like I don't know, man. Like grunge is like punk slowed down and like really detuned.
But like when Soundgarden first came out, like Bad Motorfinger and everything like that, like it didn't seem like, they knew what to do with it. Like, where does this really fit in? Is this heavy metal? Is this something new? Is this like hard rock? Like, where does this fit in?
I remember they were putting Soundgarden on Headbangers Ball.
I remember that's what I was
trying to
like,
find them a home.
Yeah.
Like, where do they fit in at?
Yeah, they fit in. They at the time, like they were heavy.
They were really heavy.
Yeah.
Especially for like daytime MTV.
Yeah, it's like interesting, man. Like, so if they had come up, like if they had lived in like Detroit, somewhere outside of Seattle, would their story be different? Would they be, or are they a grunge band? I don't know, man. Grunge is such a weird,
this is Alice in Chains and Soundgarden can totally be both known as a metal band.
Yeah.
Sure.
They both came out at the edge of that metal scene that was still happening, but they were something different.
Grunge turned into like, I mean, I don't know, man. The record executives got a hold of the term grunge and wanted to sell everything about it.
But both those bands evolved. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
they evolved a lot
All
throughout
great
their career.
All great musicians do.
Yeah.
You
Like
don't
they didn't
stop.
just stay at one thing. Like you listen to early Alice in Chains stuff and early Soundgarden stuff. It was nothing. Like fast forward like 7 years later, it's completely different.
Those guys had big ideas to use the studio as as an instrument.
Yeah.
They had big ideas.
And especially with his voice, I mean, you could do so many different things just behind that's like the really high sound of his voice, and then against like those really slow plodding guitars that Kim Thayil will play. It was just a really cool, like just combination.
And then there's like the vocal harmonies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But him,
That are totally different.
But him, even as a lyricist, I'll give him that. Like he's one of the deeper lyricists from all these bands. Like
That was a big thing with Andy Wood.
Yeah.
From Mother Love Bone, he was really good friends with Chris Cornell.
they were roommates. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Something like that.
They were like roommates when he died.
Yeah,
or something like that.
That
When
they
Andy
would try
died.
to impress each other with lyrics.
Yeah.
So they would leave things around the house, like written lyrics, and like, oh, well, check this out, what I wrote. Oh, yeah. And then Chris Cornell would be like, oh, well, look what I can write, and try to. And who knows? Look at all the probably lyrics. They all got thrown away.
Yeah,
and it
man,
was
just
just
trash.
trash.
Come out. Yeah.
Interesting. All right, so the kind of like the label's kind of a thing, but it's like these two guys don't know anything about like running a business or finance. And I've read some interviews with them, man, and they're like, well, that's just kind of the indie way. And it's kind of like, I don't know, man.
Well, have
like,
a bunch of clowns run it.
yeah, like, like, oh, well, an indie label, man. Like,
We're not sellouts.
right.
But they wouldn't be everything against the establishment, I imagine, at the time. Also,
That is true.
That
But
is
once you become a business, you become the man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
So
what
they're,
it
They
is.
fought so hard not
There's
to be the
always-
man, but they are.
yeah, they're raging against the machine as much as they can, but
Yeah.
I don't know. So, but then they decide, like, as this music scene is growing, that they're like, well, we need like publicity. And they said, like, the two guys, like, they made an agreement that they would never turn down any interview, no matter whoever asked. And I was thinking, like, oh, cool. Can we go ask them to be on our show? Yeah. But so they reach out to, and they realize that like the American like music press doesn't give a shit. Like, Rolling Stone doesn't care.
because it's not pop music, man,
right?
you know?
Right. It's still like the late
It's
'80s.
still
It is-
something so different than on the radio.
Right. Right. So they call the Brits and they call this dude Everett True who writes for Melody Maker. And they're like, yo, man, why don't you come to Seattle? We got this really cool music scene. And this guy comes and he writes it. And it was cool. I actually pulled up the article and I read it. It was like a picture of the newspaper. I couldn't even find that somebody typed it. So I had to read it. And, he talked about like Seattle, the new hot scene of music, and he profiled like a handful of bands. Some of them were like we've heard of, and some of them I was like, I have no idea who this is. So I was like, so the first band was he said it was a band called Swallow. And it was like, a little like picture and a write up. And I was like, I couldn't even find their music anywhere. I couldn't find it on YouTube, Spotify.
Wow.
Like they're just gone. Poof.
Yeah.
But they were like the first one in this story of like I had a bigger picture than anybody else and they're just gone. They just fell.
That's
amazing.
just all these great, they're probably this awesome band.
Right,
Now
right.
they're gone.
Right.
Maybe there's 45s out there of them.
Yeah. I didn't look on
Yeah.
eBay.
Or maybe they're just horrible and just kind of
Right,
like just
dog
didn't
shit.
last. Yeah.
They talked about Green River. They said they're heavy, loud, basic, and shit kicking as they make them.
They're great though. I haven't listened
The whole album's
Yeah.
on Spotify.
Yeah, it's great.
It's good.
Yeah,
It is good.
It's good stuff.
They talk about Nirvana, but they only get a couple lines. Nirvana is not mentioned a whole, and we'll talk about Nirvana in a little bit. They talk about Mudhoney, and the article really praises Mudhoney, and we'll get on that. We'll get to them. Soundgarden, the article spelled Soundgarden wrong. It was like Sound Space Garden. But he said they're the new Led Zeppelin. So this dude was like all.
I could see with Chris Cornell's vocal, yeah, dude.
At that time, yeah.
I could see the
Yeah.
correlation.
Yeah.
And then a couple other bands. But as a result of this article, like Sub Pop becomes huge in England. Everybody's buying all these records. And a
I
lot of these
believe it.
bands
I
went and
believe it.
toured in the UK. That's how like they were making money. But
They were like, in the hype of the grunge era, they were like, see how like the record stores here have imports? Well,
Right.
over in the UK, they would send the American imports over there.
Yeah.
right.
And they would slap on the sticker, it's like from Seattle. It didn't matter what the hell it was.
But that's just like America. America's so blinded by just like what's ever
But
popular.
the UK was just, they were so like, oh my God, bring this grunge thing.
Yeah.
They were like, holy shit. And they just slapped the sticker on it and said, made in Seattle.
Right, Seattle.
Made in Seattle.
Here you
And
go.
everybody went, oh, this is the next big thing.
Yeah.
And America did the same thing.
Sure.
Right.
We all did the same
But
thing.
just saying, like the Brits got it before we got it.
Right.
You know
Well,
what
it's
I mean?
just crazy that
because
like,
it's just like by the media and what everybody pushes at you, like, oh, this is what is popular music,
Right.
and it's even to today.
it's
you
crazy
know?
like this one article was like, Melody Maker was everybody, it was like the British Rolling Stone. Everybody was hanging on it with this. What they
Yeah.
said was like,
Sure.
this is what is popular. There's a couple bands I said that were in here that I want to talk about. One was this band called The Fluid that I've never heard of, but I really enjoyed I listened to a couple, I'd listened to as much of this stuff as I could find. There's a song called My Kind by The Fluid, and I just really dug it.
All right, let's hear it. Well, I really like that
I
a
was
lot.
really digging that.
Yeah, it's like really punky and like
Yeah,
you
like
know,
the hand claps and the.
It's great.
I love
I never heard
the
that.
rocking of the snare drum.
Yeah.
Like the drums sound great on it.
Everything
Even
sounds
the
great.
clapping in the background sound
Don't
great.
know, and never heard of them. Don't know what they did. Anything else?
I'm
They
definitely
never
going to listen more of that.
Never went anywhere. But I was like, all right, man, I dig it. This
Yeah.
is really cool.
That's
It's like-
cool.
Yeah,
It
no,
has
it's like
very-
definitely like I can see how the Brits like that a lot. Like
has energy.
has
It kinda-
everything in it,
It kind
you
of has
know?
a oi feel.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
kinda like-
does. It
yeah.
does. Another band, man, that got mentioned in this that really kind of got forgotten about that I really enjoyed learning about was a band called Tad. and I was sharing some stuff with you guys during the week.
I listened to a little bit.
Yeah,
of
so
it.
did I.
And Tad was like, it was named after the singer's name was Tad Doyle, and he was like a really big dude. He was like over 6 feet tall, and he was over 300 pounds. And the article was kind of making a lot of like really shitty fat jokes on him. They were like, they called him the Mountain of Sound, and like, oh, he's an enormous talent, ha ha ha. And it was kind of like, I don't know if the record of Sub Pop. I read a couple guys in Sub say that like the two dudes in Sub Pop were shitbags and let that happen, like make him be the butt of jokes.
Probably.
Yeah,
anything is good press.
Yeah.
You know, fuck.
But this band was one of the it was one of the first bands to be signed to Sub Pop, and they're really like a precursor to grunge. And I said the singer's name was Tad Doyle. They're in the movie Singles, like briefly. They're on the stage playing in Singles. But anyway, I thought they sounded a little bit like Helmet. A little bit. Let me find. We got a song called Greasebox on here. Here it is.
Man, I don't know, but for that sound takes me back.
Sure.
Yeah.
That totally bleeds flannel.
I had the exact same thought, man.
I don't know what it was. I guess it was the riff or the sound of the guitar, the crunch of it.
But even-
it automatically took me back.
Yeah.
But even like the drums, man, there's a lot of stuff going on. The drums for a Seattle band, like with a lot of bands were going on back then.
I said the drumming, it made me think of the band Helmet.
Yeah.
Just kind of real like.
You said the bass part is really
like real short,
Yeah.
like just kind of like pow,
Snap.
pow, pow. Yeah, real
Snap.
snappy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was really cool. And they, so they wound up, they toured with Nirvana. Well, Nirvana was on Sub Pop. But then after the movie Singles comes out, they get a deal with Warner Records, and they open for Soundgarden, the Super Unknown tour. So they were kind of like around for a while.
Yeah.
And then they had an album called Inhaler. And they started making posters of Bill Clinton smoking a joint.
Sure,
and
crazy not
the
to.
line underneath it was, "This is heavy shit." And Warner like canceled their contract and dropped them.
You can't do that shit.
So, but all right. So, and this was kind of interesting. This is kind of the stuff that I was I was sharing with you guys. So, in 2009, man, like Soundgarden was broken up, and he played with all of the members of Soundgarden, minus Chris Cornell. And they said that Cornell heard that and was like, "We got to get Soundgarden back together." So, and I found a little bit on YouTube of here's Tom Morello introducing the band, and then this guy gets up and he sings with Soundgarden. They were calling it Tad Garden.
That's
I thought
funny.
it was pretty cool, man. But it was interesting to hear. Here's a little bit of it. All right, that's-
And Chris Cornell was like, you know what? I'm getting back into this.
Exactly.
That
This
sounds
is horrible.
terrible. Wait, hang on. Here, let's try this. Here's them sing. Here's Tad Garden doing "Angry Chair" by Alice in Chains in like a studio. This might be a little better.
Sitting on an angry chair, angry walls that steal the air. Stomach hurts and I don't care. What do I see across the way? See myself molding in clay. Stares at me and I'm afraid.
So you're saying that's Soundgarden playing with this dude playing
Tad,
Alice in Chains.
yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's
And
like a cover. It's like a cover band with the actual band.
Yeah.
This guy's sitting.
Yeah, but it said it was for a fundraiser that Alice in Chains
Yeah.
had put together.
That
so.
guy can't sing for shit.
Oh man,
He sounds like a million guys that we know that
Yeah.
sound like that are in cover bands.
I liked them a lot. I liked the version of
vocals.
Spoon Man didn't sound very good
Yeah.
after listening to it.
Dude, man. You
Yeah,
sound
that
like you had
wasn't-
like a like a carton of cigarettes.
They must really
before-
love this guy, though. Like, I mean, they must love him if they keep on playing with him.
band, you know it's Soundgarden.
Yeah.
You hear it.
Yeah.
And just like,
It's like, fuck it, we'll get this guy Tad this.
Yeah.
We'll get that guy Tad to sing.
and Chris Cornell get really pissed off and come back to the band.
Yeah. All right. Well, this segment didn't go as the way I expected it to. I was really digging listening to this guy's music. Now maybe I know why they didn't go anywhere. They did wind up becoming. They did after the single soundtrack. They bolt and they went to Warner, and their album. Eight-Way Santa was produced by Butch Vig, and Butch Vig produced Nevermind and some other, which is actually kind of interesting. They said that at some point in this, one of the guys from Sub Pop said that like when bands were getting ready to break, they would send them to go work with Butch Vig. They're like, you got to go work with him.
Right.
And
They were lucky motherfuckers.
But then Butch Vig
Yeah.
was like convincing most of them, like, you got to get the fuck off a Sub Pop, man, and go
Yeah.
join
Yeah.
like a major
real-
record or real record
I
label.
mean, he was in Garbage.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was.
Right, yeah.
He
And-
had some hits.
Yeah. And maybe the only other band that was in this article that we didn't talk about was Mudhoney. Did you guys listen? Were you guys into them? I was not.
I know they got street red.
Yeah, they got
Yeah.
a lot of yeah.
I think because they
I
largely
never bought any of
stayed
their stuff.
Yeah.
Can we play something by
Yeah,
them?
dude. Here's "Touch Me, I'm Sick."
I always loved that song. I heard
Yeah.
it before. It's total punk rock.
But the thing is, like it's not supposed to be commercially successful. It's about like playing live in the crowd, everybody moshing around.
That band was big in Belgium, man.
They were huge in Belgium.
They were huge in Belgium.
They the Sub Pop guys still call them the Sub Pop house band.
Sure.
Like that they're still like, because I guess every 5 years Sub Pop has like a big concert, like a anniversary show, and they play almost they played on top of like the Space Needle in Seattle or
awesome.
some shit like that.
I like them.
Yeah, they just never did anything for me. I don't know why.
Yeah, I never bought
They
anything.
probably weren't like cool enough looking to be on TV.
Yeah, my biggest exposure to them is probably they did a song on the Judgment Night soundtrack. Like I remember that.
Right,
And I was like, I don't know, man. They just never did anything for me. I don't know why.
But Ronnie said that I remember them having a lot of street credit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Like out of all the even though they left and they went to a major record label, I just kind of think of them as this indie band.
Sure.
I don't know.
Sure.
I also kind of think that people that are really into indie music are just kind of like
Pompous.
yes,
Yes.
yeah, like
No, I was
asshole,
thinking
like,
the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh man, what do you mean you're not into them, man?
Yeah,
You don't
kinda
know
like-
what music
It's like,
is.
you know what, dude? You're the only person in the world that likes this song.
Right,
So
right.
I must not be cool, but you
Yeah.
are.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
If
it's one of those
anybody-
people.
right.
Yeah.
Anything sold over 5 copies and I'm not
Yeah.
interested. Kind of like probably people are with music the way I am with like beer, and I realize how annoying that can get. So, but whatever.
You enjoy Knife's Pabst Blue Ribbon.
I
though.
do enjoy it. Yes, I had more than my share Friday at McCusker's after going to the Phillies home opener.
Which we won.
Yes, we did win opening day. So I had a great experience too with a fan there. I'll tell that story maybe second thoughts. I'll touch on that. All right, man. So that's kind of the bands that are in this this write up in this magazine, and then Sub Pop starts to like get really really big, and a lot of these bands go overseas. Maybe around like, I'm probably not going chronologically here, but in '88, Sub Pop comes out with this thing called the Sub Pop Singles Club, and they come out with a limited number of 45s. And for $35 a year, you sign up and they mail you the record of the month, and you have no idea what you're going to get, and you can't opt out of it. It's kind of like
you're
the
against your
Columbia
money,
record.
yeah.
So,
The Columbia Records house.
Yeah.
Or the Columbia house.
so, and I went through the list of like people that released everything, and
They're
there were a
probably
lot of bands.
valuable. They're probably like
Oh my
really
God. They're
valuable.
probably all worth something.
Well, so it's still around.
Oh,
it still
okay.
exists.
But there's
and you can
original-
Still,
yeah.
But
those
some of the-
original 45s
Fives,
those
yeah.
from
They're-
the first couple of years are probably
yeah.
worth. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So the first one was Love Buzz by Nirvana.
Oh, right on.
And they only made 1,000 copies, and you can actually go to lovebuzz7.com, and there's a whole like this website devoted to trying to find like
All the
we
original
found
ones.
630 of the, if you have one, all that, like how to identify it from a fake and all this other kind of crap. And we'll get into Nirvana and Bleach and all that other kind of shit. But I did write down like a list of all the songs that came out And so they released some stuff by like the Flaming Lips. And I was surprised how many bands were like the early like bands I recognized. And I went back and I was like, this is the only thing that they ever did for Sub Pop. They would issue like one single.
So were the Flaming Lips on Sub Pop?
No, they only allowed this one song.
Right,
and there's a lot of like Eddie Vedder released like a single recently in this
awesome.
on this. So
very cool.
The Flaming Lips, Smashing Pumpkins were on there. The song Tis Tessa. It's on Gish.
Okay.
Before they even were on a record label, before they had anything, they had a single on here. The Afghan Wigs, they're kind of like
what a bad name that is.
Yeah, they're like
I've heard of them.
They're kind of like an alternative country kind of band.
Yeah.
I never really got into them very much.
I don't remember.
I have a couple of notes on them. Fugazi was on.
Fugazi's
it was on here.
They're great.
I put a song on them.
Let's just play that. This isn't the song. They had a song called Song 1 that was the one they released. But we haven't talked about them enough on the show in the almost 40 episodes we've done.
They're great.
Yeah. They were a band that was like, I don't know, man. Like when I was in high school, they were like the cool kids knew who they were, right?
Yeah.
You had that, their name written on your, the book cover of your textbook and stuff like that.
Like people that like Fugazi were like, the real outsiders.
Right. It was like,
like the really punk rock kids that were weird as shit.
Like the alternative music. Yeah. So, and here's a little bit of song 1. This is the song that they released of on the singles club.
Some hardcore shit.
Yeah.
I had that playing in a bar one night, like off of Sirius Radio, like their punk channel, and I was like, man, I hope nobody gets this because that's fucking cool.
Yeah, that was on on the album Repeater, which was kind of one of their bigger.
I think it's a popular song.
Yeah, I was saying as I was playing, I was like, it sounds a little bit of the like Henry Rollins, and surprisingly, the Rollins band was the next one on my list. They released a song called "Earache My Eye," which I was kind of like, all right, I don't know that, but it was written by Tommy Chong. It was
awesome.
It was
that
weird.
is
So
wild.
Like, it's not on Spotify. It was on YouTube. Here's a little bit of it. Yeah,
So what is that?
It's a Cheech and Chong song.
So it sounds like the fucking song from what's that movie? Their huge movie, Get That High,
Up in Smoke.
Up in Smoke.
Yeah.
The Mamacita, like the fucking song. That's what it sounds like.
Dude, it sounds like something Beavis and Butthead. You said like you're sitting there, you're doing what? Like you're sitting there with your mother's clothes with the pantyhose.
Yeah, here's a little bit of the original. Yeah, it's from Up in Smoke. Yeah. They play it on stage.
Yeah, it's the same song.
He's in a dress. He's got Mickey Mouse ears
Yeah,
on.
yeah. See, I recognize any song anywhere.
Yeah.
So anyway,
That's
the Rollins.
brilliant. Totally.
When did Rollins release that track?
Oh,
the cover.
What does it say?
You don't think I'm crazy.
1990.
God,
That's awesome.
That's
So-
hysterical.
Yeah.
And it sucks that this is the first time I'm hearing of it.
Yeah. I was kind
Because
of
that's like a
surprised.
cultural iconic song.
Right.
Yeah.
It is totally. I sat here. I was like, man, that sounds like the song in Up in Smoke. And you're like, well, actually, it is the song from Up in Smoke.
Yeah, I had never heard it till I came across.
I'll know any song anywhere. Put me on Name That Tune.
Really funny, man. I just kind of came across a couple other bands that were on here. Ween released a single.
They're a cool band. They're from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, they're like up like New Hope, maybe like an hour north
They've
of
been around
us.
a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're still killing it.
I put a song on there. I
Did
tried
you?
to look up songs that were on Sub Pop. Did they make the cut? Maybe I couldn't find.
I don't
anything.
think. Yeah,
Maybe I
I
couldn't
don't see
find
it on
anything
here.
on
Hey, well,
LinkedIn.
yeah, okay. Let's keep moving. Modest Mouse was released a single,
Yeah.
and they're kind of like they had that one song, "Float On," which I really
I like
liked.
them. I've seen them in concert.
Have you?
Yep, they
Here's
were
a
great.
Here's this is a song called "Broke." I don't know if this was the single. Did you look up if this was the single that they released?
The internet says that this was on the Sub Pop.
Okay, all right, cool. Here.
Broken count, so I broke a sweat. I bought some things that I sort of regret about now.
Yeah, I don't
They're
know.
a big deal. They're not my cup of tea, but Ween's a big deal, dude.
That's Modest Mouse.
That's modest.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No,
Same thing. I like yours.
right, same, right. That's what I thought. They could have been a Ween song.
Yeah.
like this
No.
kind of.
I don't know. Ween has this huge, like fish loving
Yeah.
vibe. I mean, they have that following, the fish vibe.
Yeah, they're like Fish meets like Primus. You know, like they got that kind of weird sense of humor in their music.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had one of their albums.
Yeah, I
and-
never
and,
really
uh,
got
the-
it. I never
didn't
got
either.
into them.
Yeah.
They have a few good songs, but nothing.
It's a little too weird for me.
Yeah,
but
totally. They've been around a long time though.
they have. The White Stripes released some stuff. You got a couple songs on here from them. What do we got here?
I think the first one is the actual
China Pig.
single. Yeah, like this was interesting because just the style of the song.
Okay, this is the one that's real bluesy sounding.
Yeah, I thought it was cool.
My China pig. I don't wanna kill my China pig. Man's gotta live. Man's gotta eat. Kids wanna go walking on his feet. I wanna kill my China pig.
I just thought it was cool how stripped down it was.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of our blues episode that we did all those, maybe those a year ago or
Yeah,
was
last
it?
summer.
That was a great episode.
Did you see that Jack White did the national anthem at the first Detroit Tigers game?
I did.
And it was kind of like in that same style. I didn't think it was great. Like, you know, I don't know if you guys listen to it or not, but he's playing like this same kind of style guitar with the slide guitar, like the slide, and then it breaks into like.
whatever he does is going to be weird.
Absolutely, but majority of stuff that he does, I love. It's like amazing. But for that setting, it wasn't.
Yeah,
Great.
I feel like I should listen to and appreciate him more than I like. Just being into music and the story of music and the history of music. I feel like I should
He's a
appreciate him
genius.
more.
He the majority of stuff he does is genius.
Yeah.
Like I said, like that documentary. Let's make it loud or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
It might get loud.
He seems like a dictionary.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
a dictionary
kind
of
of like
music.
gets it. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, like he like remembers things accurately, how it happened.
yeah.
Like the history of like how maybe some like a historian would, like with blues. Or
Yeah.
with other like
Yeah, he's the guy holding
old
on to
rock
it,
and
yeah.
roll.
I got a couple other bands that were on here. Jay Mascis from Dinosaur Jr.
Yeah. Oh,
awesome.
was really cool.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything earlier from Jay from more than like 2000s.
Okay. All right. Well, here's a song
Yeah.
called "Not You Again." So I love Dinosaur Jr. is really cool.
Yeah,
they're
So
great
here's a
band.
little bit of this.
Thought of you, thought of a mess I made again. How do I do it? When it leaves your hand, just understand I'm the one it missed right through a piece I've been keeping away. You really can't resist. I thought of the plot today. I thought of you. I thought of the mess I made I can. How do I do it?
I really like that. That
Yeah, I
was
like
really
a lot of
cool.
the stuff that
Yeah.
they did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was really digging that.
Yeah. Give it. I mean, Dinosaur Jr. was a good thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
they're
I
great,
really
yeah.
enjoyed him just acoustic by himself doing that. That had a lot of passion.
One of the bands that I'll talk about a little bit later was in Dinosaur Jr. and spun off and became a sub pop artist. And all right, I got two more. The other one was Eddie Vedder. So Eddie Vedder released a single under the Sub Pop Singles Club. Here's Cartography from Eddie Vedder.
Yeah, it's instrumental.
Yeah.
Of course, it's different for Eddie to put out. You know, it's definitely something to put on Sub Pop. Something so weird.
But
Only
definitely
Eddie gets it. It's me recording silence, man.
But it's definitely very Pink Floydish, though.
Yeah,
You were
it
saying
sounded
that
like
during-
something on the wall.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, and then the last one that was on here is a band that I really like is the Reverend Horton Heat.
Yeah, they're
yeah,
great.
yeah.
I've seen them.
Have you?
Yeah,
He's
I've seen
great.
them.
So he's
they're
like
great.
he was like rock
Yeah,
really
yeah,
punk
yeah.
like before all
Like Psycho Billy.
What a great show, man.
Really, here's Bad Reputation by the Reverend Horton Heat.
You got a bad reputation, that's what you got. A bad reputation, but I like it a lot. A bad reputation, and it's all over town. A bad reputation, and it's going around. You got a bad reputation, a bad reputation. You're a bad little chicken, that's the word on the street. You're the kind of girl I'd like to meet.
I
It
love
was-
that, man.
yeah.
They're like the Stray Cats, so like
Yeah,
more
I've-
punk.
They
It
put
was
a great
so. It was just so different. It was Sub Pop was like, oh, there's only one place where you can be, and that's with us.
Yeah, they put in a couple albums on Sub Pop as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I seen them at the TLA like maybe like 10 years ago. And this band like Nashville Pussy opened up for them.
Yeah.
That dude, Nashville Pussy's awesome.
They are. Dude, what a great show.
What a
Like,
great name.
dude, it's a fucking. I think I bought a T-shirt. I was like, I gotta get the T-shirt.
They're
But
like
the Reverend dude, he puts a hell of a show on, man. It's a good time.
Nashville Pussy's like the girls are both like 6 feet tall,
Yeah.
and they like they're really
Dude, they still tour together.
Yeah, they're
like,
like-
whenever they come back, the last time they were in Philly, I guess it was pre-pandemic. Like, they were touring. I was like, oh, dude, what a great show.
they're like Motorhead, like the country version of Motorhead,
Yeah.
kind of like
Yeah.
they're cool. Yeah, probably don't sell a lot of albums due to their name. Kind of like at some point, I'd imagine that the guys in the Butthole Surfers probably regret picking that name. Because it kind of gets in the
Doesn't
way
look
at some
good.
point. Yeah. Doesn't look good on a T-shirt. So
Selling out Walmart.
yeah, right. Nashville Pussy's not signing a deal with Target or Kohl's anytime soon. So, but yeah, man. And the Sub Pop said the Singles Club is still around. You can sign up for it and still get stuff sent to you every
interesting.
month. So yeah. So
I wonder if they like send you like 45s.
I think they do.
That's
Yeah, I think
that's
it's still
cool
on
just to
vinyl.
have it
Yeah.
itself, just to have.
Yeah, some of this stuff is probably collector's editions and
Oh,
it's kind of hard to find.
definitely.
You know.
Interesting. I was wondering if they would put out like new artists like 45s, or they like reissue things from back in the day.
Yeah, it sounds like bands that may be more established now kind of like want to do it to get some street cred. Somebody like Eddie Vedder, right?
Sure,
Like,
yeah.
want to kind of like
It's super
you know,
cool to do.
Yeah.
You know, why not?
Yeah, to the iconic Sub Pop label. So, all right, so Sub Pop kind of like it's like 88, 89. Sub Pop starts, becoming a label. And I mentioned before that these two guys don't know shit about running a business. And the label immediately starts having problems. So they're talking about like, and he said like a lot of these guys too were like actually like the bands were like working at Sub Pop. Like one dude was like working in the warehouse. I think they said one of the guys in Mudhoney was like the warehouse manager or some shit like that. But and they said at some point within like 4 months of the label opening, they couldn't afford the phone bill, and they were like,
Wow.
we're a record label, dude. We have to have we can't not
Yeah.
have a phone.
Yeah.
So they're like, fuck it, just bounce the check. And that becomes like a business practice of repeatedly bouncing checks. And they become like kind of the joke was that their motto became, we've been going out of business since 1988. And it was like, they got t-shirts printed that said, what part of we have no money do you not understand? They said they were literally like, one band would like use the money from a show and they had to take the cash and then use it to get to the next show because like there was no cash flow for any of these
imagine
bands.
being on that label and like getting really frustrated of being like, oh, you got to put some money into this band to promote and everything like that. Like, now you're explaining like, look, there's no money, there's no this, no that.
Right.
But we're trying for you.
Well, they said like the band, like the Afghan Wigs, they said at some point, it was the singer for Mudhoney was the warehouse manager. So at some point, like the Afghan Wigs go to LA and they're recording an album and they like show up to the studio and the studio is like, your label's out of money, dude.
Yeah.
Sorry, and they're stuck in LA and they had to go like all get jobs just to finish the album and then get home. Lord. It's just like, but imagine like, I'd imagine that kind of happens to like little tiny bands, but it's like, this is happening to like bands that went on to like,
be huge.
Right.
Like,
this
successful anyway.
But this is what it takes to make it.
Right.
Like, this kind of dedication.
To
work
shit,
these shitty jobs to make what they want, to get to where they want.
I guess we'll talk about Nirvana now. So, because I think it's
Finally.
I think it's a good segue. So these guys are like, there's no contracts. There's no formal business shit. Like, you don't get like a marketing plan how you're going to promote your album. It's just indie crap. And Nirvana was being supported by them. And they said the one time, the one dude, Bruce Pavitz, is like coming home from a party or something, goes in his house, and Krist Novoselic shows up at his door like drunk as shit and started banging on his door going like, we need a contract. You have to put something in writing. And they're like, we don't do contracts, man. And he's like, bullshit. We need a contract. So the two guys go to the library the next day and they pull out a book on the music industry and they find a contract and they photocopy the contract and they white out all the other shit and they have Nirvana sign it.
Right.
And that's where they're
they said it cost them 10 cents to make this contract.
And
that's a photocopy machine.
And the contract had a $600 advance to make bleach. And
but what wind up happening later in career, I'm sorry, with Sub Pop, this saved Sub Pop just because they had this piece of paper, because I think it was like they got 10% of Nirvana, whatever it was.
Right.
You know,
so like when Geffen Records buys them out, had this not happened, there would be no contract to buy them out.
Right.
So the contract was for like a 1-year deal and had like a couple option years in it, but they use the money and they come out with Bleach and they record Bleach for $600, which is just like great. It's my favorite Nirvana album. I think it's just great. I love the rawness of it.
It's a little bit different than the other. There's another guitar player on it. Dave Grohl's not on it. It's a different kind of feel of Nirvana.
Yeah, they're a 4-piece
band.
They're
like more like a street punk band.
Here's you put About a Girl off of Bleach on here. Here's a little bit of that. It's there.
It's definitely there.
I mean, it doesn't have that punch that Dave Grohl does.
No.
But it's Kurt. It's fucking Kurt.
You know? Yeah. So this album, it started to do okay. It started to, it was definitely one of the better performing albums. And then like Nirvana at some point gets like pissed that they don't like the way Sub Pop's promoting them, which again, like you don't like the business acumen of these guys. And, so Sub Pop tells them like, well, you want to make another album, you got to go work with Butch Vig. And they like record the demos for it. And they said like Nirvana, when they recorded the demos, they had absolutely no intention of ever releasing it on Sub Pop. They're like, we're going to take these demos and we're going to shop them around.
Yeah, they were really like like torn what they were going to do.
Yeah.
This is like Kurt when I started to realize, oh, maybe I do want to be a pop star before he realized.
Right. They're like, we want to chase the money.
Yeah.
And get the big deal.
Yeah.
And they said that they said that pretty much everybody who heard Nirvana when Bleach came out knew that they were going to be huge, except for the two dudes who ran Sub Pop.
Right.
Like they didn't see it, that they was like,
They had a million bands that they had to take care of.
yeah.
Did you say that they recorded like Nevermind 6 months after release of Bleach?
I don't remember
I think it was like 6 months.
I think they made
recorded
they made like really like lo-fi, like in a tape recorder.
Yeah.
Like the demos of it. And they were shopping it around. And I think like other people were telling the guys at Sub Pop, like, yo, these dudes are like, they're going around with like record labels, man, like playing this shit, saying sign us. And they were kind of like, there was nothing they could do. They were like, whatever. Yeah. So they paid for Nirvana to go in the studio and record these demos, and Nirvana let them pay for it, but they said they had no intention on ever signing it. So at some point, like, Geffen Records gets a hold of it, and they're like, yo, we want to buy out the contract, the Nirvana contract. And it was made me think of, what was it? RCA bought Elvis's contract off of Sun Records. Like at Sun Records, like Sam Phillips like needed the money. Yeah. It's kind of like Sub Pop was almost broke. So they sold the contract. They let Geffen
almost broke. Apparently they were broke.
They were broke. Right.
Yeah.
They said the month that Nevermind shipped, they had less than $100 left.
Wow.
Sub Pop let Geffen buy out Nirvana's contract for $75,000 plus 2% of all the royalties off of Nevermind and Incesticide.
Yeah.
And the Sub Pop logo had to go on the back of Nevermind.
Brilliant.
So when they flip it over, down the bottom, the Sub Pop logo is
You
there.
have to remember, Nevermind wasn't a success overnight. It sat around for a long time.
For several months. Yeah.
You know, so it was they were still taking a gamble.
Yeah.
With this band.
Well, I thought it was interesting, man. So they said, like, Geffen, when they bought it, they thought that Nevermind would sell about 250,000 copies. Kind of a minor success. They said, like, there's a Sonic Youth album that sold. But they said by December of 91, Nevermind was selling 400,000 copies a week.
Sure.
So it was like just, you know,
biggest thing that ever happened in music.
You're
One
right.
of the biggest things that ever happened in music.
Changes everything, blows up, goes huge. And the dudes from Sub Pop are now suddenly like, they're rich, or they're very wealthy. Or their cash problems are all fixed.
Yeah.
But they said, like, after that happened, then every other record label wants to come and pick off all these other bands. So like, oh, Sub Pop, you don't know what the hell you're doing. You're now the minor leagues for all these other bands.
That's when everybody started like, oh, you have to. Anybody from Seattle was getting signed.
Yeah.
Any band.
They said somebody at Sub Pop said it became like a mall on Christmas Eve 15 minutes before closing. People were just coming in and buying any dumb shit they could get their hands on.
Great. And you can hear it. You can hear it on a lot of the bands that they released later on.
Yeah, some of the crap.
They were like generic, you know.
Seven
crap.
Mary 3 or just like a whole wave of just like standard issue dude in flannel playing rock and roll music.
Yeah.
They probably like put them out like on a conveyor belt. Like record companies were just like, oh, well, we're gonna put you out. You put the flannel on. You can do this.
Countless bands that we've watched come in as promotional.
Sure.
You're like, don't you remember just looking at it and be like, yeah, this is crap. And just throwing it away.
Like I remember like Days of the New, we were calling them Hanson and Chains because they were like, it's just same crap, just a different logo. But Sub Pop, like that deal saved them from bankruptcy. And it's just really cool, man. It was like there'd be no contract unless he showed up at Krist Novoselic showed up at the door drunk and demanding one, and it's just kind of a cool story. But they said, Sub Pop would have went out of business if that hadn't happened.
That's insane. How these two like guys were so important in music that kept Sub Pop going. Like it seems just like there was just two fuck ups in charge of this thing that became this iconic set in time.
Right. It's like two guys that just were really into music. And then they heard something cool and they were like, all right, well, we don't know what we're doing, but we'll try our best to put it out. And then they uncovered the best band, best band. Right. A handful of them, including the band that like changed the entire world of music in 91.
But it definitely Sub Pop put Seattle on the map.
Oh, sure.
This is before like Starbucks and shit. Like Starbucks was around and everything like that. But it gives so much attention to like the Seattle, like way of life. Like, so people start traveling there, and we want to go see some underground bands in Seattle. It was this fucking Starbucks thing or whatever.
Well, Starbucks and Amazon and all this other Microsoft and all this other.
But Sub Pop put Seattle on the map, dude.
I think if you want to visit that whole time, you can go watch the movie Singles.
Yeah.
Right.
And that catches that whole time of that nasty weather, coffee drinking, grunge.
Yeah.
Well, the
hearing.
band, right.
But that's when it's already
Yeah.
exploited.
Well,
Like, you know what I
Sub
mean?
Pop, right?
that's-
Sub Pop
yeah,
led
yeah.
to that
Basically,
movie.
Absolutely.
You got to remember that was made before the grunge thing came. Cameron Crowe was like ahead of his time.
Sure.
He made that, and then like it all blew up.
But
Kind of
that's-
thing. He like made it at the same time.
But if you go back and watch Say Anything is another Cameron Crowe movie. Dude, Stone Gossard's in that movie, and there's a fucking Mother Love Bone song playing in the beginning of that. You know, and Stone
It's
Gossard's like
Crown
a
of
character.
Thorns.
Yeah, this Crown
It's
of
Crown of
Thorns. Yeah.
Thorns.
So the Seattle thing was there for like a while, but it just took a long time for everybody to catch on.
I mean, just looking like so as we're talking, I just pulled up like the list of the single soundtrack, and it was like how many of those bands were on Sub Pop? Like Alice in Chains, okay, no, but the chick was managing them. Pearl Jam came out of it. Chris Cornell, Paul Westerberg wasn't. The Love Mongers was not. Mother Love Bone, Soundgarden, Mudhoney, The Screaming Trees, Smashing Pumpkins, Citizen Dick, Alice in Chains. But yeah, there's like a lot of those bands were like contributed to this movie, and then the movie just kind of like locks it in, right? Everyone did look and fashion.
It wasn't a great success in the theater, but it was something that did great at Blockbuster. Like it was a big rental.
Yeah.
And like, you know, it has a lot of one-liners. Like we just said, we're huge in Belgium.
Yeah.
That's a big line that's in singles.
But I think that the soundtrack might be actually bigger than the movie, though.
Sure.
Definitely.
Sure.
You know.
I agree. Maybe we'll take a break here.
Yeah, right
And we'll
on.
come back and kind of talk about like what happens after Nirvana. And then I got some stuff kind of like on some other stuff that they did. We got to read their rejection letter, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Awesome.
We'll be back.
Stick around.
Prisoners of Rock and Roll is sponsored by McCusker's Tavern at 17th and Shunk Streets in Philadelphia. There's something for everyone on the beer list and the jukebox at McCusker's. It's minutes from the sports stadiums in Philly, making it a great place to stop by for a few drinks before or after a concert or a game. Come see for yourself why everyone from Philadelphia Magazine to Playboy has called it one of the best dive bars in the city. Visit them at 17th and Shunk Streets in Philadelphia or on Facebook. That's McCusker's Tavern. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Life can feel overwhelming these days. We're all moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour and sometimes get so wrapped up in everything and everyone around us that we don't take the time to invest in ourselves. Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. But the good news is therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships or at work, not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better, because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself, because you are the greatest asset. And as a special offer to Prisoners of Rock and Roll listeners, you can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/prisoner. That's betterhelp.com/prisoner. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. We're back from the commercial break. Thanks so much for sticking with us, man. We got a couple more songs. A couple more albums we're gonna talk about, but maybe the first thing we should wrap up with Nirvana was so Nevermind gets huge, and every other friggin' record label comes swooping in and wants to start buying all of these contracts out. But then so Sub Pop then suddenly has to compete with all of these major record labels, right? They're offering like
huge
stupid money to all these, like Soundgarden leaves, all these other band, Mudhoney leaves, that band Tad leaves. They all jump for big money. And one of the guys from Sub Pop said like, they used to sign a band and we'd give them like an advance of a couple grand.
Yeah.
They said at some point then it becomes like 5 figures you're giving the band.
Yeah,
They
it
have to
gets stupid
compete.
money.
Yeah. So the money that they got from the Nevermind was like, they were burning through it faster and they were almost broke again.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then at some point, Kurt Cobain dies.
Yeah.
And Bleach like sells another 500,000 copies like right away. And the sales go through the roof.
So they still had Bleach.
They did. They still do.
They still
do.
They still have Bleach.
Yeah, Bleach is the best selling album.
No doubt.
Of all. They've all.
Yeah.
Sub Pop's only ever had 2 platinum albums, and that was one of them. And one of the other ones is like a later thing. So Sub Pop, they kind of start falling on hard times again. Right before Nevermind came out, they had like laid off almost their entire staff too. That's the music police
music
coming
of
for that
Philadelphia.
for cutie song. Yeah, so they said that like a band that they would sell 5,000 records would get a $5,000 advance. Now those bands were getting a $150,000 advance, but they were still selling 5,000 records.
Wow.
So like there were more was coming out of the top,
Yeah.
and they weren't making any more money.
These guys sound horrible with money.
Yeah, they're
Probably
just
all
trying
on
to.
fucking drugs and shit.
But it's also like, how do you compete with like Warner and Sony? You know, the guy like stupid.
Well, if these guys had any brains, they would have made a fucking band themselves and signed themselves and just,
Right.
So
95, they decide that they sell half the record label to Warner Music for $20 million.
Wow.
They sold 49%. So these two guys get to keep control.
yeah, I read that.
But then they said that like it got really corporate really fast. So the guy Bruce Pavitt was like, fuck it, I'm out. In April 96, he's like, dude, I'm not down with
it's
this.
over at that point. It's over anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cobain's dead by now.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything's
And
like
it's-
cookie cutter by that point.
Right. Now you've got
You're
like,
moving into the Limp Bizkit world.
right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And you've got the band like the Seven Mary Threes and
Yeah.
all the other crap.
The
like
leftovers.
all the crap.
Man,
It's
they're
just,
lucky
like,
to get out. They're smart to get out.
Delamitri and all that other crap. They're like
Delamitri.
I like all that kind of
But they were
stuff.
unforgettable.
Yeah, it's
I
all
mean, they
that-
were forgettable.
Yeah, it's
They
all
were
that
just-
right. Just singles. You're just churning out like all
Yeah.
these random singles. But so then the band, like the label kind of, that guy John Poneman, he still works there. He's still there. But the label is still around, and it still produces records, but it's part of Warner Music. There's a Sub Pop store in the Seattle airport.
I was going to bring that up. Like they had like
You were there, right, Bruce?
No, I've
Somebody
been to
we know
CBGB
were
store.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I almost
Yeah.
threw up in the Newark
Yeah.
airport seeing that.
But in the airport in Seattle, they had a Sub Pop. You go and buy your T-shirt. And hey, man, I'd probably buy one myself.
I think I would
You know what
too.
I mean? Absolutely.
Yeah, I buy pencils.
I buy all that shit, yeah.
I buy everything they have.
Yeah, they said they make a decent amount of money off of that.
Of
too.
course.
There's
Yeah,
some big,
absolutely.
I
It's
was
a cult following.
I was looking on Amazon at like Sub Pop T-shirts this week. I'm like, that'd be kind of cool to own one.
If anybody knows anything about Nirvana, they're going to buy something about pop
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Sub Pop.
That didn't piss me off as much as like the CBGB's
Yeah, no,
restaurant
yeah,
in the Newark
yeah.
airport. You know, I'm just like, I'm gonna have a Blondie burger. So, although I would
Disgusting.
Anyway, so that's kind of so let me finish kind of their story, then we'll circle back maybe some of the funny shit that they did. So there are some modern bands that are on their roster, and I looked at like the whole list, and most of the bands I said I don't listen to a lot of modern shit, but the Shins,
Oh, sure.
like, so they were like 2001, apparently that was like they were huge in like helping them get back to some sort of financial position. I don't.
Yeah,
not
they
my-
stink.
Yeah,
I don't mind them.
Not my-
I don't
not
mind
my
shits
thing.
too much.
Yeah.
They weren't my thing. Postal Service, the band, the Postal Service.
That's an awful name.
Yeah, that went. So that album went platinum. It's the second platinum album they've ever released that Sub Pop has, and it's the second best selling album
I never heard
that
of
the
it.
label behind Bleach. And it's by the singer is a dude from the band Death Cab for Cutie. So here's a little bit of the Postal Service.
I am thinking it's a sign that the freckles in our eyes are mirror images, and when we kiss, they're perfectly aligned. I have to speculate that God Himself did make us into corresponding shapes.
You snuggle up with a White Claw, and you gotta
Yeah,
like,
that is
awful. God,
yeah, that was not good.
that was
man.
really
When
bad.
did that come out?
2003.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's
So-
been bad for fucking that long.
Right, it's been that album's that's almost 20 years old. They haven't had anything else. Flight of the Conchords was like that,
Yeah.
like kind
I
of.
hate them.
Yeah, I don't like too much humor with my
Yeah,
fucking
you've said that
music, man.
before.
Yeah.
But they're on here. A band called Beach House that I didn't listen to, but I was like, all right, apparently that was a big deal. Fleet Foxes, I think I've heard them on like the alternative station on Sirius a couple times, and then the band Band of Horses, which I like.
I like them.
Yeah, let me play a little bit of them. They were cool. It's whatever is let's find their most played song on Spotify. Here's a song called The Funeral. I don't even know if this is on Sub Pop, but
and coming up only as hard we go near. It's tearing down me all wrong they were.
Overproduced junk.
I like them, and I don't know
No,
why.
I like them.
I don't know why I
Yeah.
said that, because I just heard that. And I was, yeah, you're right, man. Like, there's something like.
Everybody's getting in touch with their feelings, dude. Everybody has this sound these days. It's like this overproduced, like there's no
That's,
auto-tune on that
how,
shit.
How
but-
old is that song?
2006.
Okay. It sounds kind of dated. Kind of.
Yeah, that it was on Sub
Yeah.
Pop.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Yeah, it's like Doug, you said, it's like it's overproduced. It's like compressed in the mix. Like everything's kind of real, like tight. There's not a lot of highs or
It
lows.
sounds like 1,000 other songs, man. Like it just,
Yeah, it's just like-
mass produced.
I don't
like,
know, man. Like
You know,
when I was driving over here, I had whatever. I just had like some pop station on, and something like Doja Cat or some shit was on, and I was kind of like, like,
Who?
right, exactly,
exactly. It sounds like that. I think.
Like it's just it's like auto tune and over like computer like production just fucking killed a lot of music,
Absolutely,
man. Like that's
it's not even music.
right. Listen to that and then listen to like David Lee Roth, like with Van Halen, or you know, like
No. It's a total
like,
different kind
that's
of
what I mean. It's like
mindset.
And people
yeah.
consider that rock and roll, man. It's
Right.
not rock and roll.
I think
But people rock out to that song though.
I guess so.
It's like they get their state, they start quiet, and all of a sudden,
yeah, it's yeah.
All roadmaps.
I could just see people running through halls, like out finding their whole lives with that song, like running down the halls, throwing papers in the air, and running out the door.
You know who I forgot to mention, man? One of the early Sub Pop bands, and I totally forgot, so I'm just going to kind of jump around. Was L7.
Yeah, they're a good band.
That album Bricks Are Heavy, that Pretend You're Dead, like everything before that, they were on there, and they were on one of the Sub Pop singles of the month. And then the Bricks Are Heavy album, another band that they sent them to go work with Butch Vig, and then Butch Vig makes this album and they leave. But here's a little bit of a song "Shove" from L7. I think we got to kind of wash some of that other emo crap out of our mouth. This is probably not good either.
I remember this song.
Yeah, I do too.
I dig their sound.
Yeah, I like them.
The only thing I know about them is the tampon thing. That's the
She
only thing I
poured
know
it, right.
about L7. That's the only thing I know about them.
And I knew the couple of the songs. They had a track in the Natural Born Killer soundtrack. Yeah,
Sure.
She famously
Yeah.
pulled the tampon
They were
out
in
and threw it.
Serial Mom.
They were in Serial
Yeah, I
Mom.
think you said
Yeah,
that
you
last
said
time.
before.
It's a
last time I-
cult following.
Yeah, they were cool, man. Yeah, and it was good to hear something a little bit more rocking after some of the modern stuff. So, all right, I got a couple more points on Sub Pop. So, I got two kind of like funny stories I want to circle back on. The first one was their rejection letter.
That's great.
They were very famous, man, for their rejection letter that they would send to people. And I have the whole thing. It's not very long, but here's the rejection letter if you sent them an album and they didn't accept it. Dear loser, thank you for sending your demo materials to Sub Pop for consideration. Presently, your demo package is one of a massive quantity of commendable material we receive every day at Sub Pop World Headquarters, and is, due to time and volume restrictions, making its way through the greater lower intestine that is our talent acquisition process. We appreciate your interest in Sub Pop and wish you the best in your pursuit. Kind regards. P.S. This is a form letter. This is what is known as a rejection letter.
I would love just to have that.
Just have
Yeah,
one like
the
framed.
framed, yeah.
Just like,
That'd be fucking great.
I'm sure there's
pretty-
tons of them out there.
Yeah, I'm sure the amount of shit that they got. And then, all right. So then the other thing was, this is really funny. So in 1992, man, I'll jump all the way back. So 1992, Sub Pop, Nirvana blows up and 10 and all this other stuff. And everybody wants to be a part of flannel, right? Flannel world. They're selling Doc Martens. And the New York Times decides that they're going to write an article on like the culture of grunge, and they called Sub Pop and they talked to one of the owners, and he's like, go talk to so and so. Go talk to this Megan Jasper, excuse me. Go talk to Megan Jasper. Megan had been the receptionist at Sub Pop, and she had just gotten laid off because they were about to go bankrupt. And so this reporter calls her and just says, "Hey man, is there a code that you guys speak? Is there like a lexicon?
It's like a lingo.
Yeah. Like what's it like?" And she just makes up all this shit on the spot right away.
So funny.
And it's really funny, but then, and I'll read some of the stuff in a minute, but the New York Times runs the article and they don't ask anybody else if this stuff is true. And then some of the bands that are in the scene read the article and they start using the slang in the media to mess with everybody. And then all the wannabe kids that want to be grunge rockers, they start using it because they want to copy the bands that they really like.
That is great.
That's
See
great
what
inside job.
happens?
It's like the greatest, I have an article in front of me open called "The Greatest Trick That Grunge Ever Pulled."
That's great.
And then in a year later, another magazine published an article where this girl admits that it was all made up. And then the editor of the New York Times calls her and starts yelling at her. So
that's what they get though.
Yeah.
Man.
Fuck 'em.
So I'll read. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's only like 10 words in here. But I thought it was really interesting that Megan Jasper, who was the receptionist that got laid off, she's now the CEO of Sub Pop. I thought it was kind of cool. Like she left and she came back and worked her way up. So, all right, here's
she's a genius.
yeah, really
Like
funny.
she's a genius.
So, the lexicon of grunge. All subcultures speak in code, and grunge is no exception. Megan Jasper, a 25-year-old sales representative, provided this lexicon of grunge speak, coming soon to a high school mall near you. Wax slacks are old ripped jeans. Heavy wool sweaters are called fuzz. Flat platform shoes are called plats. Heavy boots are called kickers. Hanging out is called swinging on the flippity flop. Staying home on a Friday or Saturday night is called bound and hagged. Great is called score. A bummer is called harsh realm. A loser is called a cobnobbler.
The cobnobblers.
Cobnobbler of the week.
I was definitely called a cop in high school.
A desirable guy is called a dish. I get that. I'm like, oh, what a dish. A drunk is called a bloated big bag of bloatation. An uncool person is called a lame stain. Uncool outsiders are called the Tom Tom Club. And a happy goodbye is called Rock On. So
What a great name for a band, the Tom Tom, like the Tom Tom.
there was
Clubs.
a band called
There
the
was
Tom
called
Tom.
the Tom Tom Club. That's why I was
Yeah,
laughing.
yeah.
But dude, I've definitely heard these terms
Lame
throughout
stain,
our
I've
life.
heard lame stain
Yeah,
before.
definitely heard
So,
these terms in my
just
life.
Awesome that became
Yeah.
that the squares ran with it. And
Wow.
Yeah,
it took
that's
them like
funny.
over a year. You're right, because it was like there's no internet.
internet.
to
I
check.
can't
Catch you
look
on
it
the
up.
flippity flop.
We're gonna start saying
Swinging on
it
the
now.
flippity flop.
Swinging the flippity flop.
I think that's it, man. Oh, I did have a couple other minor bands. I don't have any of the music that I want to play from them, but there's some other bands that were on Sub Pop that I had heard of, like the Super Suckers.
Yeah,
Kind
sure.
of like,
sure.
I had known them. The Afghan Wigs we mentioned. Sebado, they were one of the dudes in Dinosaur Jr. Kind of like he quit, made another band. Sleater Kinney,
Sleater Kinney,
yeah,
right
like
on.
all the girls, the
Yeah,
girl
yeah,
band,
yeah.
and Sunny Day Real Estate. They were
Oh,
like
yeah.
like one of those beginning, like the emo.
I
Yeah.
love them.
Do you really?
Yeah, I saw
Yeah,
them
they're-
in concert like years ago.
Sunny Day Real Estate?
Yep.
Yeah, they're a
Really?
big band, dude. Yeah.
I think I seen them maybe in 2001. They were fucking great.
I'm shocked.
Yeah,
I just I
I
think
was with
I
like
thought it was
college friends kind of thing.
I think that's like essential, like kind of moody,
The
broody.
friends that I was with, they were like college
Yeah.
kind of dudes.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow. Look at that. I learned something today.
Hey, I've seen them all from Prince to
yeah.
them. You know?
Yeah,
Shit.
it's too like emo for me. Like it's just emotional. They are kind of an interesting band. Like they put out that one album, and then the singer he got really religious and wanted to like. I think he wanted to infuse that in his music, and the band was kind of
Sure.
like, no, that's not going to work, and they never really did it. I don't know. Maybe
Weird.
because I dated a girl in college that was like really into them, and maybe that's what I associate.
Strange.
I just don't like the music and her. So whatever. I think that's it, man. With Sub
Yeah, man.
Pop Records, it was a little bit shorter than some of our than the Kiss episode,
That's
but
all right. This is a different kind of episode. I'm definitely sitting back and learning something.
yeah, I
tonight.
learned a lot. Yeah.
there's definitely some music that we uncovered that I'll be like, all right, man, I'll listen to some of the stuff
Yeah,
again. I'll
sure.
listen to maybe not the live Tad stuff, but some of the other
Yeah.
stuff the studio stuff I'll listen to. And it was cool. There's some bands that we hadn't talked about yet, like the Reverend Horton Heat and Modest Mouse and Dinosaur Jr. So yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, good time.
Good stuff, man. And I learned a couple things. So all right, I got some. You know what? Let's do music news first, because the music news, the second thought I have is related to the music news story. So the first one was that the 64th annual Grammy Awards were held last week, and I really just kind of looked at it just to read all the winners.
I didn't recognize, like, I saw Justin Bieber and just
I didn't even know what was going on.
Neither did
I
I
didn't
until
either.
the next day. I saw
Maybe
who won.
if somebody slapped each other inside, maybe I knew what was going on.
Right.
Yeah.
But I had no idea even it was on.
They said a guy, John Batiste, won 5 awards, including Album of the Year. He's the first black artist to win that since 2008. No idea who that dude is. John
I
Batiste.
want to say I heard his name
I
before.
have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's gonna know him. He's been like target of like the Target fashion brand.
Right.
He'll be selling shit.
Silk Sonic is a duo that won 4. That's actually Bruno Mars and a hip hop guy named Anderson .Paak. And I was kind of like, all right, man. Like,
Is that called a project? Something else
I
besides
think
Bruno Mars?
Yeah, I was like,
that's
all right,
cool.
man. Like Bruno Mars is kind of cool. I'm
He's
like, all
very
right,
cool.
maybe I'll
Yeah.
give that a listen.
Yeah,
No
he's
problem. And then the Foo Fighters won 3 awards. They won Best Rock Performance, Best Rock Song, and Best Rock Album. They weren't there to accept the
Obviously
award,
not, yeah.
and they were supposed to perform, and they
obviously
didn't. So Billie Eilish was nominated for 7 awards. She didn't win anything. So, and the Best Metal Performance I thought was interesting. Dream Theater won Best Metal Performance.
really?
I'm like, so
Well,
they're still
that's-
around making
there's a
albums.
big fan base for them, but
Yeah.
Did they play?
No.
I
think that was one of those like the shit that they don't announce, like, you know,
Yeah,
the
no, it's in
previously
commercials,
recorded
yeah.
segment.
Yeah.
I'm friends with like a guy from Blues Traveler.
John Popper.
Yeah, he went to the Grammys.
Oh, really?
And,
Did he?
Yeah, and he went, but the before party.
yeah.
Like that's what he was.
When they
like,
give it out like the rock stuff.
they were out for like best blues album, Blues Traveler, and they had like in the middle of the day. Like, and they were like all dressed up for like
the photo op?
the photo op and everything like that. But they walked the red carpet.
No,
they
God
did all
bless them.
that.
No, good for you. I would too.
It's like the show's like 8 hours long.
Yeah.
The stars only show up for like the last
Of course.
3 hours.
Right.
Yeah,
they had,
of course.
Right, they
Yeah.
had to leave. Like,
Yeah,
get
it's like
out,
you're
get out.
sitting in somebody's seat. You
Yeah,
gotta go.
Yeah.
Right. Popper's kind of a friend of the show. He's
Yeah, dude, he's
given us
awesome
some
guy.
feedback a couple times. So, and the other story that I had, and that's why I want to do this first, was Joe Messina, who was the guitar player for the Funk Brothers, died at 93 years old of kidney disease, and he was one of the guitar players. He's in the Shadow of Motown documentary. And the band called him the White Brother with Soul. And, he was in all those legendary band sessions with all those hits from Motown.
You know,
We talked about it in the Funk Brothers episode. We talked about him in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame snubs.
He had a nice long life,
I think there's
though.
only 93, man. It
He
was
had a
like,
nice long life, yeah.
and I think there's only like 2 of those guys left. 2 or 3. There's not, it's not many.
and I talked on the show before how I played for the Funk Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, they sat there and watched him, and I totally remember him sitting there because he was the only white guy.
The only white guy.
Yeah, I remember sitting him, and he sat there the whole time and watched us.
You always, and I found as I was typing up this, little brief thing to put in here that when the Funk Brothers got fired, when Motown moves to LA, that dude quit playing the guitar.
Wow.
And he didn't play the guitar again for 30 years.
Wow.
Because he was like, it just,
How do you beat that?
he said it just broke him. He
Sure.
was like, I have
That's
no
understandable.
desire
Yeah.
to play anymore.
Played on what else do you do? You played
everything.
everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
Played
is
on
again, like, the fact that these dudes are not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is just
Yeah.
like, it's
mind-blowing.
I don't get it, man. Like, I can see the argument, like all those other bands we talked about, like Iron Maiden and Motley, and like
Sure.
I can understand the argument against it. You
Well,
know, like I
you know.
disagree, but I get it.
They
These
shouldn't-
guys, I don't understand.
No.
Well, if anything, they're not going to waste the time to put them in.
Right.
But give them like an honorary thing like they did with Randy Rhoads.
Yeah.
Right.
Do that shit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They put the 2 guys, James Jamerson and the 1 drummer are in, but it's like, dude, these guys, like they deserve to be in,
definitely.
man. It's like,
Yeah.
right. If you went back and you put the Comets in, and they put the Crickets in, and the moon, like the
E
Miracles, right? The E Street Band, they had that jump where they kind of made it right. Like,
Sure.
you got to do it.
Yeah. Who knows what happens in the future?
Yeah. So, all right. So second thoughts. So second thoughts was after that he passed away. I shared the awesome clip of Joan Osborne playing "What Becomes of the Broken Hearted"
Right.
with them
Yeah.
on our
Yeah.
social media, and Pat on Twitter said, since I first saw and heard this piece in the documentary, I watched it a dozen times and I've never not gotten chills every single time. Come on, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, right or wrong, and induct the Funk Brothers.
Absolutely.
Right on, man.
Great point.
That's why I put them on our list, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't think they were going to get any votes, but it was my chance to put them on, the select list.
I really think it's one of the biggest travesties in music that they're not in.
People just don't know who they are.
Yeah.
I think the documentary did well, but it didn't do that well. It's still underground.
Yeah. Well, that dude, the guy that wrote that book that made the documentary did I think I shared it with you guys. We were preparing for that episode. Like he gave like a class at like a community college somewhere in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I watched
He
that.
gave like a 2-hour, like he taught a class, like, so I shared it with that person on Twitter that commented and I was like, dude, check this out.
Sure.
And they were like, oh, that's really, really cool. So yeah, the guy that wrote that book and all that shit, he's a local dude. He lives in Philadelphia. So,
Awesome.
You know what, dude, I did have another second thought. So so Friday night, I went, my wife and I and the warden and I and a couple friends of ours, we went down to the opening day for the Phillies and we were down in Philadelphia. So we shot over to the bar afterwards.
Over at McCusker's?
Yeah, shot over to McCusker's, and Ryan, you were working, and it was nice to see the bar was really jumping. It was busy.
Yeah,
it was really
good day.
cool.
Yeah.
And I was talking to somebody sitting next to me, overheard me talking to you, Ryan.
Yeah,
and
totally.
was like, hey, you're on the podcast. I recognize your voice. And that's like the third or fourth time that's happened in the bar, which immediately my ego gets big.
Of course.
And my wife kind of scooches her seat further away from me because she doesn't want to fucking hear it.
Yeah.
But I had a good 15, 20-minute conversation with this dude where it was,
Who was it?
your friend Richie?
Oh, yeah,
Cousin
Richie.
Rich.
Cousin Rich.
Yeah. So he was,
He listens to our show every week.
He loves it. He tells me every week he loves it.
He was like fanboy. Like, I mean, he was bringing up things that I said in episodes and asking me, like, when you said this about Rush, what did you mean? And it was like, and it was cool. And we started talking about like some other stuff, Guns N' Roses and everything else. And at some point I just kind of was like, I felt weird. Cause I was like, all right, man, like I'm like, you need to find another hobby because you're you're like hanging on my every word a little bit too much.
No, Rich is a great guy.
It was really
Richie
cool.
Legitimately loves the show.
And
like
we
he tells me
we
every
totally
week.
appreciate your support.
Yeah, dude.
It made me feel really good. I was like, all right, man, somebody's listening to what we have to say and somebody cares.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite people to walk the planet.
Yeah,
man.
really, really nice guy, and I really enjoyed talking to him,
man.
and it was really cool. I felt awkward, but that was more my own ego.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with drinking since 10 o'clock in the morning at all.
not the fact that we started that I opened a Miller High Life at 10:30 in the morning, and then by then it was 9 o'clock at night. But
You looked good though.
I asked Ryan how you guys did. Ryan's like, surprisingly, they were great.
felt all right,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, so,
Yeah.
you know, a little sunburnt, a little,
Yeah.
it was a long day, but it was fun, and it was, dude, going to McCusker's and talking music to everybody
that's great.
Where the idea for the show came from, right? Like every night,
That's the idea. Yeah,
right. I'd come in and talk to you guys and be like, we should have a show doing this, and then it just kind of like spun it. So it was really cool, and I really enjoyed talking
Rich, you're
to
the
him.
man, dude.
Yeah, man.
Really appreciate it. So, all right. So, the electric chair. The electric chair is a segment where we kill a song for being absolutely terrible. And this, we were talking during a commercial break of what to kill, and we have a couple choices. We don't know what to do. So, Ryan, what were you saying? Like,
what will we start with? It could be I Could Walk 10,000, 5,000. What was it called?
yeah, that Proclaimer song.
Yeah.
I will walk
They're a great
5,000.
band. They're a great fucking band.
Are they? I don't know
great.
another song by them.
They're a great band.
I feel like we killed that song on the electric chair
I
episode.
want to say we did.
Well,
And then you had a couple really good ones, man. And you also suggested
Death Cab for Cutie.
Death Cab for Cutie.
And what was the song that we wanted to talk about? There was a Pacific song.
Oh yeah, song "I Will Follow You Into the Dark" by Death Cab for Cutie.
The lyrics of this song are fucking awful.
Yeah.
It sucks, dude. I don't know anybody out there that fucking likes this fucking song. This song makes me want to hang myself.
Yeah, it's horrible.
So I don't know anything else about Death Cab for Cutie.
Your
listen
face
to
is
it.
completely
Other than that was the band that the Postal Service. It was their other band. I don't know anything else about them.
God
It's so generic.
damn, listen to this fucking song.
Someday
It sounds like a guy sitting home alone,
I'll be close.
watching TV,
That's the style.
I don't like. Where would you hear this? It's like WXPN, like the indie station in Philly. Like
No. The only reason I know about it is because you said one of our friends had it tattooed to his fucking arm.
yes, I believe the warden.
Warden
has a tattoo on his name, a tattoo on his arm of a Death Cab for Cutie lyric.
God. And he wants to make fun of me all the time?
Yeah. So if you see the warden in McCuskers, he has to see the tattoo.
All right, so
Anyway.
all right, I think I hit the right button here for the electric chair. Here we go.
We sentence you to death.
Man, all right, so there's that. All right, man, so that is it for episode 39. If you like what you hear, do us a solid and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Tell somebody about us or leave us a review. And if you want more of the music of Sub Pop Records, we publish a Spotify playlist with every episode. There's a link in our show notes. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We post there several times a week, and we love talking to all of our listeners. You can also visit us at prisonersofrockandroll.com or prisonersofrockandroll@gmail.com. And thanks for checking us out. We'll be back in 2 weeks with some more insight and entertainment.
All right. Later on.
Keep on rocking.
Peace out.
I'm just a prisoner.